morning, students. My name is Wil Janssen. I'm from a small research-based advisory company in the Netherlands, which is called Innovador. And I've been working or doing part of my time on research in the field of personal data management for the last 15 years. So it's always puzzled me how this will work and how we can grasp the importance of personal data services and make it available to us as users. We're an advisory company, do a lot of research, and from that research sometimes also relevant software has come out. So one of the products that we have is which is called MyData, the software that allows you to read out digital identity documents such as passports or sometimes also driving licenses or ID cards with chips in it. And using our software you can digitally read all the information in the passport after consenting. You cannot do that illegally or without informing the user. And that software can also be one of the components in the infrastructure for personal data management. The software is called MyData, free of use in the Play Store if you would like to use it. But that's not what I would like to talk about. What I would like to talk about is some of the lessons that we have learned or tried to digest from the developments over the last 10 to 15 years in personal data management. Because well, the attention it gets now is really tremendous. It's getting a lot of momentum, and I like it very much, but it hasn't been that way over the last 10 years. It has been a lot of struggle in getting personal data management known, getting services in place, and we kind of wondered why that was the case. So on behalf of the Ministry of Internal Affairs, we did a study to get an overview of all kinds of initiatives, especially in the Netherlands, but also a bit outside the Netherlands, but as most of you are outside the Netherlands already, I'll focus on the Dutch situation. And we'll be focusing on personal data services, personal data management services, which are services that allow individuals to manage their personal data and to share it, if it's in their interest with other parties. So that's the definition that I would like to use for now. It's not on components of those services, it's about services that allow you as a consumer or as a citizen to get control or regain control of your personal data. And that personal data is valuable. I won't repeat that, you heard a lot about that by Stuart as well. And it's not only people, so we have individuals and personal data, the same also holds for companies, but under a different legislation, not a different framework, but we'll treat the two alike at this moment. As most of you are not from the Netherlands, who is from the Netherlands? Oh, yeah. So I recognize all Netherlands. We know each other very well. It's a small country. Let's put things a bit into perspective. In 1999, so that's about 18 years ago, Project VRM started, laid the foundation of the whole idea of personal data management. And that was even before LinkedIn was there and Facebook was there. And in the Netherlands we had Hives. Who knows Hives? It was kind of a mini Facebook, and it had more than 10 million users by that time. But it kind of got swallowed by King Gaffer. A bit later, so in 2005, in the UK, MyData started, and that was when in the Netherlands the first ideas came out on governmental personal data management services, which were then called My Government Advisor. We developed a vision for the government at that time. And also a bit later, the Key Foundation started, where Martin Lauwman is part of. And a few years later, actually My Government in the Netherlands came alive. But that was almost about the time that the phone, or the smartphone, got a breakthrough with the iPhone. In 2010, the tablet came out. So a lot of these developments were in a stage where, well, we thought quite differently about the internet than we do now. So things have evolved, and still, already in those early days, a lot of thinking went on about personal data management. And why I use this slide is that to illustrate that we're in a different time now than we were 15 or 20 years ago when things started. And then where are we now? If you look, I'll leave this one because the slides are already on the and where are we now in the Netherlands? Well, in the Netherlands we have ministries that are involved with all their agencies, Ministry of Internal Affairs, Tax Department, Ministry of Social Affairs and Unemployment. They have their data and they share with you in many different places. Also, we have many municipalities, 400 municipalities, which all have their own My Enschede, My Amsterdam, My whatever, where they connect to you as a citizen as well. Then we have a number of banks that share, that don't share, where you take services, especially through electronic banking. I think more than 90% of people in the Netherlands uses electronic banking nowadays, and of all younger people, almost everybody uses mobile banking. So there's really a large adoption of electronic services in banking. And then we also have the insurance companies and the pension funds, who have their own My VGZ, which is a health insurance company, or My APG, which is one of the largest pension funds in the world. And all these have their own services. You have My Government, My Tax Department, Jobs.nl, where you have to go to and have to work with when you're unemployed. You have My Pension Overview.nl, where you can see whether or not you have, how much pension you have, and whether that might suffice in the future when you get a retirement. And you have the mobile banking environments. So everybody has his own environment, and nothing is connected. And you can get access to your data, but you cannot reuse it. And one of the difficulties in that is that, in the same way as in the Japanese case, it's quite hard to identify you as a digital citizen. In governmental services, we have a thing called DigiD, which works very nicely, has a high rate of adoption. It's widely adopted because everybody needs it in order to fill in their tax forms. But you can only use it in a governmental area, plus pensions and health insurances. So the private sector did not have a widely accepted digital identity. They have introduced it now, it's called EDIN, kind of called after the highly successful electronic payment system by banks called Ideal, and I've also IDIN behind it. So kind of things are changing now. Now we have now the means also for identifying people, both in the private sector as well in the public sector. And also we have the changing legislation that we are facing. GDPR is mentioned quite a lot. And also for banks, you now get the PSD2, Payment Service Directive 2, which forces banks to open up their data, possibly to other service providers. So now there's little interconnection, there's no reuse of data, and there's very little service to consumers or citizens to be able to control and manage your data with a proper personal data service. So given this landscape, it's not strange to see numerous initiatives pop up that try to fill in that gap, that try to support you in correcting your data, or in gathering your data and sharing it, or in enriching, in allowing you to control the consent or the authorizations that you have given. It's a multitude of initiatives, and we try to get an overview, but every time we update the overview, we get a mail and say, oh, we're also in this field. So this is a growing field of initiatives. And one of the difficulties when studying this whole bunch of initiatives is that it's basically about two different things. It's about apples and oranges. On the one hand, you have all kinds of services, like I mentioned before. It's a service that allows you to do something sensible on the internet with your personal data. Might it be my government or Dapper, the app by Key, or Typic, which is on the field of managing your home, or CV Monitor, which allows you to validate your CV and add your diplomas to it. It's all kinds of initiatives. But in the whole range of logos and the developments that I showed before, there are also things which are more fundamental, which are kind of trust frameworks. And often the distinction between the two is not too clear between for many people that we talk to, but I think it's important to stress that somewhat. The services are actually what you are using as a user on the internet or on your mobile phone or whatever. Many of them are, some of them are based on a trust framework. And a trust framework is the legal foundation, the rules and the regulations that enforce the service to work in a proper way, to make sure that it fulfills the basic requirements of a personal data management service. And there are many services which are not based on a proper trust framework. And there are some services that are based on a trust framework, or sometimes even the trust framework and the service are kind of one and the same. For example, MyData is not a Dutch initiative, it's a well-known initiative from the UK. The trust framework and the services are jointly developed and used at the same time. In the same way, Key Foundation, the Dutch initiative, and Dapper, the app, are closely related. And these are some of the examples of the initiatives, of the solutions that are in the market. These are the trust frameworks that are in. So, MyData I already mentioned. Identis is the trust framework for identity, which has now come up in the Netherlands, which basically is the foundation of the interoperability between things like DigiD and IDEN. Well, the logo on the top hand side you should know. MedMe, with me, is a new trust framework which is being developed in the Netherlands on healthcare, sharing healthcare information, which is gaining a lot of momentum, just to name a few. What does this then look like? Take my government in the Netherlands. The solution is a trust framework. Well, basically it is a solution, but it has some rules and regulations that are not very explicit or well documented, but this government through a good structure. It's only governmental services, and this is my page when I logged in yesterday evening, as you can see. And what does it actually do? It simply discloses the places, the governmental places, where some personal information is available from me. So my personal data can be accessed. I log in using my DigiD, and then I can click through to all the data that's known about me. Sometimes I have to log in again. Sometimes I just get a link to the service of a municipality. For example, my own municipality, the municipality of Enschede, does not have a direct login. You have to log in again. So it's a very heterogeneous box of data and messages. Also, there's something which is called the message box. All the messages the government, not all, but many of the messages the government will send to me can be done in an electronic way and will end up here in my message box. And sometimes, for some governmental agencies, I can also check into my running affairs. So I have a permit going on or something going on. Sometimes I can access it as well. So much is about sometimes and some data, and it's not about reuse. It's not about the things that I really would like to do in a place like this. So it's quite different also from, for example, the Estonian situation. And one of the really interesting or annoying things is, for example, here's my, I added my email address here in my government. So as a user, I would expect that once I registered here my email address, that's something that's broadly used within the government. Now it's only used for this web page to communicate with me, with my berichtenbox and other places. I can use a different email address and so on. So it's not a single single publish and reuse kind of way of working. But all in all, it is there, it works, it's safe, and it's widely adopted. But we can do better. And what is needed then is a widely adopted trust framework, so a foundation of building those personal data management services. And there's quite a few that are available now. Some of them are, which I would call horizontal, they are generically applicable, and some of them are more of a vertical nature. They're specifically tailored towards a sector. For example, with me is tailored towards the healthcare sector, starting to be applied, but still close to a conceptual stage. Key, or the trust scheme, which is called Key Foundation, is very generic, but it's also being applied and moving into stronger adoption. The identity system is more on identity, and it's growing towards adoption very fast. So we see different types of trust. We had the distinction between the trust frameworks and the initiatives, and within the trust frameworks you have both horizontal as well as vertical frameworks. The same also holds for all the services and initiatives, and I won't go into detail of, I think even now, of many of them. This is one of them that I like very much. It's called the Moneyer, and it's a bit related to the banking case that you mentioned earlier. What the Moneyer actually does is that it accesses your financial information, so it can hook into your e-banking solution, gather the data from that, aggregate it, and do analysis from it. It's a Dutch company, but it's launching primarily now also in Germany, because Germany is already way ahead of PSD2 legislation. Any people from Germany in the audience? Yeah. Can you explain a little bit on how the German e-banking situation is, or do you use e-banking solutions that are not from a bank?
Depends. The banking solution from the bank is normally only focusing on that bank. Some provide the possibility that you can plug in different bank accounts and summarize them, but
So
the bigger ones are normally on PC then, because they have bigger analysis capabilities, and it's limited on maybe on the iPad or on the tablet. So I haven't seen anything like that.
So this allows very detailed analysis of all your spending. It can show anomalies in the same way a credit card company shows anomalies when you suddenly get a transaction in Spain when you're not in Spain. It can help you in budgeting and so on. And it's something that kind of takes how do you say it? They try to be in place once PSD2 legislation starts to roll out, which is in May 2018. Then they want to have the software in place and to use this in a broad way in the whole of Europe and also in the Netherlands.
Do you know if there's any registered database where companies could register with? Do they have an API? Do they have a web service? And what kind of functions do they export, or do they make public available over the API? Because this will be interesting to measure up things.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting, but that's something where you get into the competitive advantage of those banks. So the banks are very, very reluctant to share that. They're also struggling with their strategy in this field very much. Especially, I can only look at the Dutch situation for this. So the question is, when does a bank take a leap of trust and say, well, I want to be your bank, and not so much with your bank account at SNS or ABN AMRO. No, we want to be your financial manager. So whatever way your bank account is, we will manage your data, and we will publish the APIs and allow you to connect to that and so on. So the question is, when do banks move into a more service-oriented type of services instead of being a bank? So when do they become a bank of data instead of just being a bank of money? And I know that many of the Dutch banks are working on that, but they're very hesitant in moving forward. And there's definitely no such thing as a register of of published data, and I know there's a lot of fighting going on also on what the APIs will be to access the data. So the PSD regulation is not something that is like the GDPR that is developed in Europe and implemented in all countries at the same time. Now it has a local implementation. And I know there's a lot of fighting going on in the Netherlands, narrowing down the functionality of PSD2 in order to create a competitive, to limit the impact of PSD2. One of the examples in this broad field. Another one, my insurance is in a row. Finally, the insurance companies are moving a bit ahead as well in the Netherlands. They've been very reluctant as well in doing something with my personal data. In October of this year, they will launch all my insurances in a row.nl. Great URL, great marketing, which allows you to make an overview of all the insurances that you have, which is quite difficult because there's no single ID that allows you to combine all the insurances. So, we've seen a lot of initiatives, and we've also asked the Dutch audience, what do you think about sharing data? This is a slide in Dutch and say, well, in principle, many of the Dutch people are willing to share their data. If they're obliged to do by law, if trust is in place or for national security. There are fewer people that say, if I get money for it, 25%, or if I get a better proposal, 11%. That's all data from 2016, end of 2016, early 2016. And they also say, well, I would like, for example, I don't mind the government using it, or tax department using it, or municipalities using it. I wouldn't like it to be used in healthcare or in travel. All in all, Dutch people are open for personal data management solutions. So they're in. But we, from all the initiatives and the talks that we had, we learned a number of lessons. First of all, given the time perspective, there was no and there is no first mover advantage in personal data management. It's a complex issue, it's a complex topic with a lot of privacy sensitive elements in it. So the first movers have to, well, they have to break the way, they have to make sure that things can start, but they don't have the first mover advantage, which is sometimes the case in other areas. Also, there are many difficulties in creating a working business model. It can save a lot of money within government, it can save a lot of money within insurance companies when you have your data in order, but who will pay and who will get the money? You have to think about your business model. Many of the solutions that we've seen don't have a sound business model. And also, many of the initiatives have a great vision, a holistic vision, a generic vision, but you need to start from a direct need where you can feel the potential of the actual value of a personal data management solution. That's not always true. 3 other lessons. We think that the role of the government in creating trust in these kinds of issues is very important. It's crucial. It also came out of our user study. People still in the Netherlands still trust the government more than anything. And you should leverage that trust. For example, by validating or supporting a specific trust framework, or adopting it, or promoting it. The Dutch government doesn't do so at this moment. And I think that's a big mistake. And also what I mentioned, you need a digital identity. And we have a kind of a chicken and egg problem on the digital identity. You had a public identity, you had numerous private identities, but there was no framework to unite them. That's getting in place. Many other countries have an advantage in this. They do have a good digital identity. Belgium, Estonia, Denmark, Sweden. So there are many countries are way ahead of the Netherlands. And finally, personal data is about trust. And trust requires transparency. So once you have a solution that is not too clear about the business model, or not too clear about the way consent is handled or whatever, you won't get into the market. You need trust, and you need to show how trust is generated through transparent solution. So these are the lessons that we kind of distilled, the insights that we kind of distilled from the initiatives that we studied. These are not laws that you, once you fulfill these, it will work. These are first insights in the last 10 years of initiatives. So this is what we learned. I'm interested to hear what you learned. Thank you.